Welcome to the Wild Sacred Journey podcast. I'm your host, Kate Powell. In a world where humans who feel vibrant, whole, and fully alive seem to be increasingly rare, where burnout and brokenness seem to be increasingly the norm, both in individuals and our larger ecosystems, it seems worth exploring how did we get here? And more importantly, what perspectives or what cultural practices or what spiritual, ancestral, or animist wisdom processes might help us stay true to the spark and rhythm of our aliveness on this wild, heartbreaking, but ultimately rare and precious life. Thank you for being here. May these conversations help us to stay human in the face of dehumanizing forces. May they nourish our wild, tender hearts, and may they plant seeds which flourish into a more regenerative and vibrant future. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Wild Sacred Journey podcast. So if you've been here for a while, you'll notice that we're starting off this episode a little differently. We're not lighting the candle and invoking the fire, although it's always with us, nor are we going to intentionally ground in. Instead, you're on a walk with me, which actually feels kind of perfect for this Wild Sacred Journey. So I'm thinking this might be the new format for a little while, and we'll get into why in just a moment. But it also, I wanted to sort of mark that this is my just about 7-month mark back from this 4-month pilgrimage I went on to Scotland and Ireland last fall. And, you know, if you've listened to some of the episodes I made since then, I've talked some about integration and sort of why, and well, not why, but how we end up not usually really knowing what an experience was about until we've integrated it. So I had my ideas about what the trip was going to be like because there were the themes that were coming up beforehand, right? And then during the trip, there were the things that were coming up, the things I was tracking and paying attention to. But then it's only been since I've been back, and it's taken me, this has been a pretty intense integration. It's taken a really long time. And so it's only really been since something clicked a couple weeks ago that I would say I've really landed in a feeling of sort of some completion around the integration and a lot of clarity. Now, this isn't to say that what was happening in the last 7 months, this isn't to say the clarity only came in then. It's been coming in slowly over the last 7 months. But one of the themes that's been really coming up is this idea of burnout, and then the idea that burnout is actually a sign that we are out of rhythm with aliveness. And even this idea that if we really tune into aliveness, if we really devote ourselves to our own aliveness and then the aliveness of the world, we actually might be able to create lives free of burnout. So that's something that really came up for me. You might have heard me talk in other episodes about how on the trip, one of the themes that was coming up a lot was like just not trying so hard. And so that, along with other things, had me really burnt out. But I don't think I'd realized how burnt out I was until I got on the trip. And I also don't think I'd realized how much there was some part of me that maybe believed that cycles of burnout were somewhat inevitable. So this idea that you'd have some energy and you'd use that energy and then that energy would be gone and you'd crash and you'd have to kind of cycle through that again, right? And particularly if you're familiar with human design, I'm a projector. So we tend to operate a little bit more that way anyway. We have those undefined energy centers. So we don't tend to know satiation as well. We have to work a little bit harder to learn that. So that's a theme I've been working with for quite a while, right? Starting, I realized I knew what too empty was and I knew what too full was, but I didn't necessarily know what enoughness was. So I've been working with that for a while. So that ties in with this. But there's still sort of this sense that somehow that all of that's inevitable. And recently I've been thinking a lot more about life was absolutely challenging for our long ago ancestors. I'm not saying it wasn't, but I'm starting to have this suspicion that burnout wasn't actually a thing they grappled with. Because I think burnout, if you think about burnout is actually it's about energy, and it's about an imbalance between input and output and energy usage, right? And if you look at the world around us and you look at us internally, we're seeing everywhere that we are living in systems that are unsustainable from an energetic standpoint. So if we're constantly pushing our bodies to achieve, use our energy in ways that are unsustainable, then that's a rhythm of mechanization, right? That's like us trying to be like machines that are expected to just constantly go, which, I mean, all the energy to power the machine still has to come from somewhere too. And we're seeing that we're struggling with the sustainability of that and the regenerative ability of that. And certainly there might be other sources of energy that are more sustainable, more regenerative. But the question still remains, like, if we're trying, like, our bodies are not machines and they are regenerative, or they can be, if we are in a rhythm of aliveness. We can find something that's sustainable. So even though I was traveling and moving around and living in a lot of uncertainty and a lot of unknown when I was traveling, I actually found some rhythm where I felt like I could keep going for forever, right? And that rhythm I came to kind of call aliveness. And it wasn't that every day was great, and it wasn't that I could just keep going and didn't need rest. I took a lot of rest. I had days where I let myself just feel sad or scared or whatever else I was feeling, right? It's not that things were always going to be able to go and that we're always going to feel good, right? Those are part of this internalized empire, this internalized rhythm of mechanization we have that assumes that good and linear are like, that's progress, right? That's a sign that things are working. And that things like needing breaks and feeling sad or scared or broken some days, like that those are flaws in the system and impediments to progress, right? But that's only true if it's a linear trajectory. If it's a cyclical trajectory, that's not necessarily true. That's just part of these cycles of creation and dissolution, of life and death, of movement, of ebb and flow, right? So this is a lot of what I've really been clarifying, that for me, it feels like this journey is about, and my work is about, is helping myself and then others find this sense of aliveness, come back in touch with this rhythm of aliveness, because then I think we can create a world without burnout. And if we understand the systems of energy, our own and those of the larger world, in such a way that we're saying, I want aliveness, not burnout, everybody benefits, right? So how does this tie in with sort of the shift in the podcast format, at least for the time being? Is that I was noticing that there's a lot of other things in my life right now in the background that I'm really focused in on that are needing my attention. And so the podcast has kind of become, it's still important to me, but it's a little bit less of a, we have to be, if we're working to counter burnout, we have to be really discerning in where and how we spend our energy, our time, our energy, our care, right? So I was having to kind of make some cuts, and there was something about the old format that was feeling like it wasn't going to fit. And so in the past, where what we might have done is we might have then shut something down, right? That would be a cycle of burnout, would be, this isn't working, shut it down, right? But that's that cycle of burnout. That's that go until it doesn't feel good and then end it. And sometimes we need to end things when they don't feel good, but it's helpful to get curious in that moment and say, okay, is there a way I can engage with this where I don't have to shut down, I don't have to close it down, but that feels more aligned, that feels more alive for me right now? And so some of that was, not sitting in front of the desk, being on a walk. That's really stirring a lot of my creativity right now. Shorter episodes, solo episodes, And then, there's a strong chance that I will be traveling again within the next few months. And so I think this will also help, because last time when I was traveling, the whole thing of the sitting down and the having the, just having it be more formal like that, I noticed then I couldn't keep that up when I was traveling with sort of the unknowns and the need for flexibility that travel entailed. So I'm hoping that this will allow me to kind of keep some of that up a little bit more. So yeah, that's just a quick update and some of my thoughts around burnout, and also, what you can kind of expect from the podcast moving forward. Again, at least for now, that's aliveness, is this constant adaptation, evolution, checking in. What's the ecosystem needing? What am I needing in the ecosystem? What can I give the ecosystem based on what I currently have, right? It's all a practice of listening and tuning in and tracking the flow, and then aligning ourselves the best we can with that. So I'd love to hear if you have any thoughts about this, if this stirs anything for you. I love to be in conversation. And of course, I know everybody says it, but it's true. Any liking, sharing, subscribing you can do is very helpful. So if you know someone who's grappling with burnout right now, who could really use, who you think might resonate with this perspective, this idea, and I think who isn't grappling with burnout right now, right? But specifically someone who maybe is a little more sensitive, a little more spiritual, who maybe has grappled with burnout a lot because some part of them has always been a little bit more at the wild edges of things, right? Then please share, and let's just keep this conversation going. So anyway, I look forward to chatting with you next time. Thanks for being here.